Hello, it's G again. And as you can see in just this picture, and this is all you're going to see, this is the show slash manga Demesa na Kanojo. Now, the manga has ended, the show only had 12 episodes, and it was known as a dumpster fire, and I can definitely agree with you. One of my greatest passions in life is the thrill of the debate, the thrill of the argument. I like to make arguments, and I like to just, and specifically, I'm very masochistic. I like to take the arguments that no one else wants to make, and I'll fucking make it. You know, as long as it's the most unpopular opinion in the room, that's where I'm siding. I'm siding with you, baby. Right? And so I've done this multiple times. I've do this, and this is one of my great passions in life. I'm going to. So, if anyone here knows, I want to first give you a synopsis of the Mesa na Kanojo so you understand where my argument is coming from. In this show, you have these three people. These are the three main characters: Hina, Natsuo, and Rui. Now, Natsuo is in love with Hina, who is his high school teacher. So first and foremost, I'm not arguing for. You know what? I might do that. Maybe that'll be safe for a different video. I just love being masochistic. I'm gonna get fucking. I'm probably gonna get canceled for this shit if this ever becomes big. But Natsuo, basically, he's in love with his teacher Hina. Now, he's he's sad and he's lonely, so he goes to this thing known as a mixer, which is like in Japan. I don't know if in other places they do this. I don't think America, at least I know they do this. It's more like a group gathering in America, but in Japan, in a mixer is like usually have like even amount of same amount of guys and girls, usually three. They go together and they kind of go hang out and then see maybe they might hit it off and see if they'll go start dating, right? So Natsuo is invited to Mixer, and there he meets Rui. Now this girl, basically tells Natsuo, "Hey, I don't like you, and I know you don't like me, but I kind of want to just get laid right now as the experience." And there's nothing wrong with that if you're consenting. As I'm going to say this again, if you're consenting and you know, and both parties have consented and it's safe sex, go for it. That's what she wanted to do. That's her decision, and Natsuo gladly complied. Then the next day, Natsuo basically learns that his father has remarried, and remarried because his father was alone, and he has now two new sisters, stepsisters, and you know what it is? Who they are? It's Hina-san and Rui-san. Yay! So Natsuo has started a step sibling love triangle between him, Hina, and Rui. And that is the premise of the story. Now, everyone here, yeah. This is supposedly incest, and yeah, most people would not like the relationship seeing here, and that's the whole point of why this story is fucked up. Because supposedly he's now in this situation where he's in love with his teacher. He's in love, and the Rui is in love with Natsuo, but they live under the same roof. They're step siblings now. He knows a teacher, and all shit goes fucking haywire. All right, but that's besides the point. I'm here, and I'm going to make the argument that this situation isn't fucked up. If anything, there's nothing immoral about it. Natsuo has done nothing wrong by and this one have nothing to do with the teacher aspect, right? Teacher-student relationships. If we want to talk about that, let's just put it into a vacuum and just say that for the sake of argument, Hina's not a teacher. She's about the same age. Let's just assume that much, because the teacher-student relationship, that is a different argument that maybe I'll make one day if I have the courage to just be a fucker, being masochistic. But why don't we look at this specific step sibling relationship? Because I'm arguing that there's nothing wrong with this. What they've done is nothing immoral. It's actually not fucked up. If anything, you shouldn't think it's fucked up. Because first and foremost, and I think this is the most important thing, they aren't related by blood. Ooh, that sounds like a very degenerate excuse, but that's true, right? An objection that most people make for incestual relationships, and this is true for anything, is that if they're related by blood, there's a possibility, and this is the biggest thing, is that if they do, right, or whatever, it's just they could have offspring that could be deformed, and it's bad. It's just it could cause actual medical issues with the children, right? Even cousin on cousin relationships that occurs. And the reason why, you wouldn't allow for your for your brother on brother action, girl on girl action, because if you allow that, then therefore you must allow these other blood relations as well, as you need to create a set standard that everyone must follow, right? You can't just have exceptions to murder or to stealing or to all this different stuff, right? There's not an excuse to say that their relationships are so different that you can hold one to a higher standard than another. You have to hold them to both the same standard, right? In order for it to be an actual correct and morally sound thing. So that's my first statement there. Maybe I'll make a response if people ever have any responses to this, and I may try to create a new video where I try to explain my thesis more. But this is just a real introduction to my argument, specifically domestic conundrum. Now, but first and foremost, they aren't related by blood. So that leaves us with the problem is that they're legally now step siblings. And as such, they shouldn't have these relationships. It's wrong. But is it really? I want to give you a case study here. And I want you to think of this hypothetically. Let's just say we have this exact same setup. But instead of the father marrying the mother of these two young ladies, right? What happens instead? He opens up his home, and this is possible. This is truly possible. Just go along with it. Thought experiments are like this. Just so you can understand my reasoning here. He opens up his home and help these three people because maybe they're homeless, maybe they need more food, maybe they want to share the rent and make it cheaper because they live in Tokyo, right? And it's very expensive. I don't know if they do live in Tokyo. I'm just making an assumption here, right? And all of a sudden, then there is a love triangle that starts because they do start living together. Now, most people, if you hear that, that synopsis, there wouldn't be a reaction of, this is disgusting. This is real fucked up. No, this is a fucked up situation. No, you'd say, okay, that's, okay, yeah. As long as, they're both consenting, there's not a teacher-student relationship, because, again, the teacher-student relationship is a different matter. We can argue that later. We're only looking at step-sibling relationships specifically in this show without that factor of the student-teacher relationship. If by that standard we allow that, right, and we would say that's okay, and I think most people would be okay with that, right, because there's nothing there to link them legally. They're just living under the same roof, helping each other out, right? They aren't step siblings. People would be okay if there's a love triangle relationship. Actually, there probably are shows in anime and manga that have this same type of setup that occurs. And so why is that different than what happens with Natsuo and in this situation, right? The only difference between the two is there's now just this legal document that says, they're step siblings. But they aren't related by blood. They've never had a relationship with each other, right? Let's put it in a little box, right? That, for example, Natsuo and Rui never had a relationship, and they, at most they, had sex with each other beforehand. So what's the difference between that action, that situation that I've created, and this situation? It's that very purpose, is that it's because they're legally bound to be brother and sister. But how is that right, and how is that fair? They have no relationship prior to this, right? They never liked each other. They never talked to each other, right? Right? We'll just look at Natsu and Rui specifically. They never talked to each other. He smashed a bird, right? There's nothing there to suggest that. And so I don't quite understand why this specifically is so different from that. That's the only difference. Yet we would say this is a fucked up situation. This sucks, and this is immoral what they're doing. Yet when we look at that other situation, be like, hey, even though we may not like it, we can't really specifically say that it's immoral in any way. Because at the end of the day, as long as consenting, right? Because all these guys are consenting, that's fine. So this seems to me to be my first objection, right? Which is that you have to have the standard set there. But the standard that they have created doesn't seem to make sense. Why are we getting so much disgust towards this relationship but none to that one? That seems to me to be more of an emotional response rather than a logical response. And that seems to be and again, I'm going to repeat myself a lot because have none of this scripted, is that is the first objection. is that in of itself, this situation is no different from that, and you shouldn't treat it as such because this is a very specific scenario that follows to the situation that I said. Now, the other thing is here, in many cases, there are actual relationships within Hollywood, within manga, within anime, where you have childhood friends who then become later lovers. Why is that not a wrong thing? Right? Why is that wrong? Why is that not a wrong relationship? We even glorify it. It's like childhood sweethearts, childhood friends. No, and then they fall in love with high school and then they smash each other. Why is that allowed? Why is that allowed? Think of it like this. They, from a very young age, as children, were brought up together as brother and sister, basically, right? And this is in many cases what it is to childhood friends. And they're so close, they're just like brother and sister, or brother and brother, or girl and girl. I mean, sorry, brother and brother, or sister and sister, excuse me. So they've been brought up like that, but yet then they start having a sexual relationship within high school. Does no one think this is bad? Does no one think this is wrong? Because in general, they had a much stronger brother-sister relationship, brother-brother relationship, or sister-sister relationship than these three, Natsuo, Hina, and Rui, Natsuo, Hina, and Rui will ever have, right? These people are only siblings on paper, but they were never like that ever at any point in time. They never even acted like that. They were forced into this situation. Why is that this, when they don't even have the relationship to say that they're brother and sister, that they have to act like brother and sister. But we are okay when we see childhood friends who are brother and sister, who act like brother and sister, or sister and brother, that they, acted like this, had this actual relationship that is purely plutonic, and we say, nah, it's okay that they might, start having sexual feelings for each other, even though they acted as if they were brother and sister, right? We would say, if that was a real life brother and sister who were actually blood related and they did that, we would say, wow, that's disgusting and don't ever do that. But yet we're okay that these two are like that, even though they have that deeper relationship more so than these three. They might even have a much deeper relationship than maybe a blood-related brother might have, right? Or blood-related sister. That's a possibility. Yet we would still be okay with that. I don't seem to quite understand why we give that the seal of approval when it's actually much more important what the emotional bond is, when instead we don't give this relationship the seal of approval. We say, this is fucked up and this is a dumpster fire. I don't see why this is an immoral thing. And specifically to this relationship, we can talk about others, but specifically the domestic nakanojo relationship, this doesn't seem to me to be on the level of what I've described with the brother and sister of neighbors who are very close childhood friends who acted as if they're siblings. That seems to be a much deeper relationship, much more troubling relationship, that much more troubling troubling problem to occur if they started having sexual feelings for each other, even though they only ever treated each other as siblings. They never did this. So why is that this relationship worse than that? Is it just people's minds? I don't understand that. I mean, what we're basically saying is, we're saying, hey, seal of approval. I mean, you acted as siblings, as children and as teenagers, but then you guys develop sexual feelings. It's okay, have sex with each other. But with these two, we say, these three, I'm sorry, we say, look at them. Even though they never had a relationship, they never really talked to each other, they don't treat each other as brothers and sisters. But you know what? They start doing it and they want to pursue a romantic and sexual relationship. Disgusting, right? The responses doesn't make sense to me. And maybe if someone can explain it and someone can really argue for it, I'm willing to respond to it, because I find it fun. I like taking I'm kind of a masochist when it comes to stuff. I'm always willing to take the most unpopular side of things. And I know what I've just said is gonna spark shit if anyone ever watches this video. But that's where I'm trying to understand that aspect. Maybe maybe I'm not and I've tried to really think about this when I created this argument, but it just doesn't seem the most logical to me. That we're okay with that relationship, but we're not okay with this one. That one, actually, they treated each other as siblings, as brother and sister. This one, they don't. They're only legally bound. The only difference between that relationship and this relationship that relationship for being a brother and sister relationship is that they didn't have the stamp of approval, the legality of being brother and sister. But this one did, but they don't have that deep and emotional connection. I would argue that a deep and emotional connection is what's the most important when we're defining what a family is, right? When an abusive mother abusing their child should and can revoke their rights to being a mother. If you abuse your child and slap him around and do all this stuff, you may be the biological mother, but there may be an actual truly mother figure that cares for this child. Similarly, right, some people find father figures in their coaches, right? And a boxing coach and a sports coach, right? This happens in manga anime. This is a real thing that happens everyday life, right? You find a father figure and they are like your father. And people have even expressed that's like their father. I don't count my deadbeat father who left me as a child as my father. And I think that this whole legal thing aspect doesn't seem to justify why we scorn at this relationship and say that it's immoral while we say these other relationships are okay. And and I think that is how I'm going to conclude this. I don't know if I missed anything. I don't really give a two shits. This is just what I came up on the top of my head. Unpopular opinion. Let's go. So if anyone wants to argue against me, I'm very much welcome to it. I guess post your comments if anyone ever watches this video. Post your comments down below, and I'm really looking forward and hoping that maybe we could try to figure out, and I can try to respond to certain things if people so choose to give me responses. But this is my unpopular opinion. Just as I had that unpopular opinion about Sword Art Online, about it being a masterpiece, and I still think I can count it as a masterpiece. I believe the Mesena Kanojo there's nothing fucked up about it if you really think about it through a logical perspective. We just have an aversion to it because we think they're brother and sister. Yet we allow all sorts of other relationships to fly by, which actually do have actual brother and sister type relationships. So this is the Mesena Kanojo, unpopular opinion. Fucking fight me, bitches.